have a question for God. Why? God! Just take me!
Welcome Tour is arguably the strangest product in the Switch 2 catalog, both in the present and for the future. General reception towards it can best be described as confused anger. However, I have a different perspective. Specifically, 3 of them. As a gamer, I find it boring. As a designer, I find it useful. As a business grad, I am laughing myself to death because Nintendo has successfully pulled off one of the funniest marketing tricks in the modern gaming industry. Best part is, people still haven't realized they got played. It's so damn funny. Okay, enough preamble, let's begin. Here's the leading questions of the day. What is the Welcome Tour supposed to be? Why did Nintendo make it? And what do you think is the big funny marketing trick? You've got 3 separate perspectives to consider here. Show me what you're capable of. Let's start by getting this out of the way. This is a demo software. Demo software are apps or tools used to showcase a separate product to potential customers. The software's primary objective isn't to be entertaining or fun, but to explain and demonstrate that product's capabilities. This is not to be confused with a software demo, which is a temporary free trial of a product. Tech companies like Nvidia produce them to show off tools like their new graphics cards or Unreal Engine, translating the product's technical specifications into something tangible, hands-on, and understandable. Developers require these because deciding on software tools can be a big commitment. Having a cheap and accessible demo can help a developer evaluate the tool's capabilities and check if it meets their needs before deciding whether or not to purchase it. On a more pragmatic standpoint, it's also a lot harder to sell software without a demo. It'd be the equivalent of a company saying, "Just trust me bro, it'll work out," which is something you should never do. Trust no one. These demos are pretty boring by nature since they only serve as a technical showcase and nothing more. But hey, B2B products are always boring anyway. What do you expect out of something called business to business? Things are different for gaming hardware because they sell to both developers and general consumers. And general consumers don't care for elaborate yet boring tech demos. Consumers are here to buy something fun, and the best way to demonstrate how a game console can be fun is to give them a game to play. This is a tech demo game. Not to be confused with a game demo. That's a free trial version of a full game. Problem is, making a game is a lot more complicated than making standard demo software. Standard demo software only needs to be detailed and informative. Doesn't matter how boring it is as long as it demonstrates the product's use. For a demo game, you still need to do that, but you also need to make it fun. That means designing gameplay, making up mechanics, creating art and music assets, programming enemy AI, the works. All of which a standard demo does not need to care about. This increases the cost of production. Unfortunately, this is an essential expense. Without a demo game, a game console struggles to showcase its unique selling points to the average consumer, which will negatively impact sales accordingly. Every game console benefits from a demo, even the PS5 and Xbox. The faith of dedicated fans only goes so far. They still need the sheer numbers of the general public. Since the expense is more or less fixed, the game company will instead try to deliver the demo in a way which maximizes their overall benefit and return on investment. This is typically done in one of 2 ways. The first way is to distribute the demo as a freebie with the console, artificially raising the console's perceived value among potential customers. Wii Sports is the most famous example of this, being a minigame collection packaged with every Wii console. This game showcased both the Wii's motion controls and the Mii system, with all characters being composed of Miis. PictoChat was a free software which demonstrated the DS's LAN-only system-to-system wireless communications and touchscreen functionality. This was a really big deal back in 2004 since it predated the smartphone era, which only began and gained popularity in 2006 to 2010. The 3DS continued this pattern. Face Raiders showcased the system's AR and gyroscope. Flipnote Studio 3D lets users make stereoscopic 3D animations. Street Pass Mii Plaza relied on the Street Pass functionality, which allowed nearby 3DS systems to detect and exchange data with one another whilst in sleep mode. That last one was my personal favorite. Loved the Street Pass. Astro's Playroom is a 3D platformer for the PS5, which showcased the functions of the DualSense controller. The ideal case is to either have the fancy new tech impress the consumer enough for them to purchase it, or or they just get convinced that the bundle is a good deal and purchase it anyway. This can pay off in the long term if these freebies generate sufficient consumer demand. The individual profit margin of each console is reduced, but the demo's original development cost can be spread out over a large number of consoles and minimized. Economies of scale, gotta love it. As Wii Sports famously proves, this can work. How many people were convinced to buy a Wii just because it included a free game? Install base is generally the most important objective for a game platform to achieve, because more users means more game sales in future. If the free demo can directly create more console sales, that is absolutely a worthwhile trade-off. The second way is to sell the demo game as a standard game. This reduces outreach but helps fill the console's launch lineup and also generates revenue directly. Game & Wario was a minigame collection which demonstrated the asymmetrical gameplay of the Wii U gamepad. 1-2 Switch was a minigame collection that used the Joy-Cons in a variety of ways. Knack served as a technical showcase of the PS4's raw system power, by showing how it could effectively render 2,000 little rocks that sort of shape into some fecking weirdo troll. Yeah, good luck drawing that shit, kid. It also gave us that one masterpiece of a donkey video.
A masterpiece! Oh, look at the graphics on that! Look at the graphics on that game!
These games aren't exactly the best, except Knack, but are necessary for a healthy console launch. New consoles need games at launch. They assure players that they made a good purchase and gives them something to do while future games are in the development pipeline. Sometimes tech demo games are a mix of both. Nintendo Land was another Wii U minigame collection that showed off gamepad applications. It was included in some Wii U bundles, but was also sold as a standalone game. Beat Saber was a time-limited free title for the Oculus VR headset. After that limited time period ended, it was made available for purchase. The free version also sold various music packs as paid DLC. Street Pass Mii Plaza received an update years after the initial console release, which added additional minigames as paid DLC. If reception to the demo game was particularly good, they could be expanded into more fully fledged sequel games in future. Mii's were incorporated into Nintendo's future systems and spawned future titles like Miitopia. Wii Sports led to Wii Sports Resort and eventually Switch Sports. Astro's Playroom led to Astro Bot. Knack led to the greatest game of all time.
I give Knack 2 my first ever 10 out of 5, and that's just for the graphics alone, okay? Don't even get me started on the storyline.
To summarize this into 3 points, demo software needs to showcase the product's capabilities. Demo games add another layer on top, needing to be actual games. Demo games provide value to the consumer, either by being a freebie or as a standalone launch title. Now, tell me, my dear viewer, which of those 3 points did the Switch 2's Welcome Tour succeed at for a general consumer? Vote on your phones now. All done? Alright, the answer is none of them. It doesn't do anything right. Welcome Tour, how dost thou suck? Let me count thy ways. Firstly, what does this thing even showcase? Welcome Tour is presented as a walking simulator that turns the Switch 2 into a convention hall-like area which your generic corporate art-style human can walk around in to visit multiple booths and read explanations. In other words, it's a glorified instruction manual. An admittedly very well-made instruction manual with high production values, but an instruction manual nonetheless. Consumers don't care about this. They don't want to be told what their new product's features are or what it can do. They want to be shown what the feature does and why it is interesting and exciting. Unreal Engine 4's Attic Demo is a good example of a demo software which is useful for both developers and consumers. It is meant to show off the engine's capabilities at rendering light and ray tracing, but also included multiple settings for general consumers to play around with. It provided multiple options to toggle illumination, reflections, translucency, and change time of day, letting me see how the engine handles light in different ways. I could switch from a first to third person perspective, display the frame rate, bump into objects to observe physics, and even shoot light-based projectiles to see how multiple moving lights interact with one another. It's interactive, engaging, and fun to fiddle around with. Welcome Tour isn't, it's just really boring. Secondly, this isn't a game. Everything about it, from what it does, to how it looks, to how the Direct explains it, to the experience of starting it up, tells consumers that this is not a game. It opens with you being dropped in front of an information counter. The first few things the player gets to do is walk around, read signboards, and take quizzes. The minigames are present in small booths scattered across the expo hall. However, they aren't actually visible upon the software starting, and are located behind the player, out of view of the camera. It takes the player a while before they wander around and find the games. And when they do find the minigame booths, one of the first few they are greeted with is this.
So I've got my maracas here. Can kind of shake them around, and right now, I'll
Like a very festive here. Nice.
What? What is this? Why is this? By the way, this is the official Treehouse Live showcase. This is one of everybody's first views of this software. Why would you, as a consumer, want to buy this when you could just buy a game instead? Thirdly, this product provides no value to the customer. The Nintendo Direct highlighted 3 prominent new features for the Switch 2: mouse controls, game share, and we have Discord at home. Everything else is just upgrades and improvements to hardware, system, and quality of life. All 3 of those new features have game demos which better showcase their use cases than Welcome Tour. Drag and Drive showcases a unique use for the mouse controls to mimic wheelchair and basketball throwing movements. Game Share gets demonstrated with Clubhouse Games 51, extending a single purchased card and board game across multiple switches. Remember the old DS download play experience with Mario Kart DS? That's my childhood right there. Game Chat has Mario Party Jamboree's new game mode, which shows you how fun it can be to include people's real faces and live reactions as interactable gameplay elements. They are an excellent trio of demos which effectively cover all bases regarding the console's new gameplay features, while also being fully functional games. Anybody who sees them in action can understand the unique feature being showcased and why it could be fun for future games. Compared to those 3, the Welcome Tour is completely overshadowed. It doesn't even contribute to the launch lineup because the Switch 2 doesn't need one. It's backwards compatible, so all the new Switch 1 games like Metroid Prime and Tomodachi Life will be present to support its early launch period. This indirectly screws over Welcome Tour's deployment options, because you cannot seriously convince anybody that this product provides any value to a general consumer. There's no way to sell this. It being a paid purchase means it directly competes against 3 other games who do its job but better, one of them being Mario Party. Its actual price is irrelevant because it isn't worth any price. It could cost $10 or $5 or $20. We'd still be having this exact same conversation because its actual value to a consumer is $0. The fact that it costs any money at all means it gets placed in the same category of paid software as the other games, alongside all the consumer purchase psychology that comes with it. However, even if it was available for free, it wouldn't generate any consumer interest or contribute to console sales, because many people already know how a Switch 1 works, and the ones that don't won't be interested in an instruction manual, even if it was free. This has literally zero impact on anybody's decision to purchase a Switch 2. Welcome Tour is a product that is doomed from conception to be unwanted by general consumers. It isn't a game, can't sell nor be a selling point, and other Switch 2 games can demonstrate game features in a more fun and entertaining manner. So why does this exist? This is a software which has made it all the way from prototype to final release and arrived on time for the Switch 2's launch date, with all the appropriate development necessary to be a finished product. During all that time, it was not stopped or cancelled by anybody within the chain of management. Anybody who has ever worked in any sort of production role can tell you how big of a deal that is. That means Nintendo's developers, for some reason, consider Welcome Tour to be something necessary for the Switch 2's launch. Now, Nintendo isn't stupid. I know it's popular on the internet to claim otherwise, but they don't make things for no reason. Anytime Nintendo makes a game or a console, there's always some underlying logic or thought behind it. The logic might be incorrect or mistaken, but there's still something there. Take the Wii U for example. It was founded on the idea of the gamepad controller and asymmetrical play. The idea didn't work out, but you could still tell there was some kind of creative thought process at play. However, we've just gone through all the ways that Welcome Tour fails at being a demo game. So, what is it? Let's review the facts of the case as we've surmised. Welcome Tour is clearly some kind of tech demo. It is not a game. It does not meaningfully showcase the console's new gameplay features. It is not interesting or exciting enough to have any value to the average customer. However, it fulfills some purpose important enough to justify being a launch product. Here's my hypothesis. Welcome Tour is a tech demo for all the boring and unexciting technical features of the Switch 2 and is made for developers, not players. If we look at it from that perspective, things begin making a bit more sense. The Switch 2 has many technical improvements over the Switch 1. Stuff like the magnet clips, improved motion sensor, rendering speed, and so on. This is potentially useful information to developers, and since Nintendo actively wants indie games on its platform, it makes sense to provide a tech demo at the platform's launch. However, this stuff is all boring by nature. Players will never find it interesting, so they didn't even try to make it interesting. In fact, from a purely technical showcase, it's better to be boring, straightforward, and transparent with minimal distractions. Hence why it isn't even a demo game. It's not supposed to be. The 3 demo games handle the actual fun stuff for general consumers. The Welcome Tour is there to cover everything else. This might be why Nintendo felt comfortable with a $10 price tag. It seems like a pretty silly use of money to a general consumer, but it's a totally negligible business expense for a company. As a matter of fact, both the software and the Switch are probably tax deductible since they'd be considered essential company equipment. I've seen weirder tax write-offs. So, assuming we evaluate the Welcome Tour not as a game but as a developer tech demo, how good is it actually? Well, it's actually pretty okay, I think. It seems to do a fairly decent job at covering each individual component of the console with the help of visual aids and short text explanations. It contains many simple demos for a wide range of mechanical functions, both interesting and mundane, from rumble intensity to mouse controls to 4K TV compatibility, all of which is delivered through a pleasant, easy-to-navigate user experience with good production values. It's hard to say for sure exactly how comprehensive the tour is at the time of this video because the Switch 2 isn't out yet, but first impressions seem good. I can totally see this being on a company-owned device as an accompaniment to an actual dev kit. So what's the actual problem here? Why are people so confused? What's the big marketing trick? Well, it all stems from this exact moment. This one word.
Join me inside the game. Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour will launch as a paid digital game is actually inside the game itself.
To help players better understand the Switch 2 hardware, we're currently developing this game.
Game. That's a contradiction. The Welcome Tour is very obviously not a game. It doesn't look like a game, it doesn't feel like a game, it isn't even named like a game. Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour sounds like a museum audio guide for tourists, and it was described in the Direct as being a walkthrough of the Switch 2 and all of its system features. If that is what Welcome Tour is, people will be totally fine with it. PictoChat and Flipnote Studio were obviously not games, but were still well received as software. In fact, when the Welcome Tour was first shown in the Direct, initial reception was actually positive. However, Nintendo, for some reason, consistently insists on calling it a game and having that be the justification to charge $10 for it. The Direct calls it a paid digital-only game. Nintendo's website categorizes it as a Nintendo Switch 2 game. The Treehouse Live's video playthrough of it is titled as Gameplay Video. Even Nintendo of America's company president, Doug Bowser, calls it a game in official press releases. It's honestly impressive how consistently this software is being miscommunicated. It almost feels like the Wii U problem all over again, somehow recreated in a console which is just named The Thing 2. This seriously messes with customer expectations because people are no longer looking at Welcome Tour from the perspective of being an introductory software. They are looking at it from the perspective of being a launch title game. And as a game, it is awful because this is not a game. It's like calling a museum brochure a book. I am absolutely convinced that if Nintendo just called it a demo software, consumer reception would not be as upset or confused as it is now. In fact, most people would probably ignore it. And that's the first half of the trick. This is all marketing team shenaniganery. Notice that people are paying attention and talking about it. If the welcome tour was called a demo software and given away for free, the general public would ignore it. That's what they did for stuff like PictoChat and SwapNote, which attracted curiosity from developers but not from the general public. The public doesn't pay attention to technical software, but they will pay attention to a new game. Remember what I said earlier? The fact that it costs any money at all means it gets placed in the same category of paid software as the other games, alongside all the consumer purchase psychology that comes with it. That purchasing psychology goes both ways. By labeling Welcome Tour as a new game and giving it a price tag, general consumers are now paying attention to it. For many casual consumers, this is now a game and will get mentally grouped together alongside Mario Kart and Donkey Kong in the Switch 2's launch lineup. It's like a cardboard cutout of a person being held up in a crowd photo. It doesn't actually contribute anything meaningful to the launch lineup. But if you're just a regular person who walks past and only spares it a brief glance, it maintains the illusion of being an actual product and makes the list of Switch 2 exclusives look a bit bigger than it actually is. Don't overestimate customer attention span. It's very short. When was the last time you actively looked at and examined an ad? However, this illusion is broken extremely easily by anybody who has ever played a game. To these people, the contradiction is incredibly easy to spot. What do you think these people will do in response? They'd complain on social media, of course. In fact, they'd probably react something like this. Nintendo have the audacity to lie about this being a game and are charging for it. Look at how greedy and stupid they are. They'll be shouting this en masse all across the entire internet for days and weeks. Here lies the second half of this trick. People are now unironically engaging in online arguments over a tech demo, which would normally be completely ignored if it was given away for free. All of this online chatter is worth far more than any possible revenue that piddly $10 would ever generate. Marketing team managed to get blood out of a stone. They've taken something with zero customer value and tricked people into arguing over it. This is outrage marketing. Those of you who guessed right, nice job. Outrage marketing is a powerful marketing tactic which relies on absurd and inflammatory actions to trigger a negative emotional response and drive online discussion. It works because negativity is an extremely strong motivational force. People are emotional creatures who are attracted to drama, controversy, and complaining, and love expressing their emotions and outrage. But despite its power, most companies will avoid using it because outrage marketing has a major drawback. If you aren't careful, the negative attention can easily backfire and screw over the product being advertised due to consequences like customer boycotts or legal actions. However, Nintendo completely sidesteps this drawback because they don't care about the sales of Welcome Tour. Their primary objective is to maximize sales of the Switch 2. As I mentioned earlier, Welcome Tour is a product that has zero value to a general customer. That means it has no sales to lose. A product boycott is pointless because nobody is going to buy it anyway, and there's no threat of any legal consequence because it's not illegal to set a stupid price for your product. This also means that all negative sentiment towards the Welcome Tour is completely harmless. It will not impact anybody's purchasing decisions. If you are purchasing a Switch 2, it's probably because you want to play new games like Mario Kart, or are waiting for future Nintendo games, or simply because you are excited by the new features or a new gadget. If you are not buying a Switch 2, it's probably because of high prices or low availability, or because you aren't interested in Nintendo's games. use. All perfectly good reasons to decide on a purchase. Nobody will ever list, "I hate that the welcome tour costs $10" as the primary reason to not buy a Switch 2. It's such a minor issue that the most anybody would do upon discovering it is to simply complain about it online. However, anybody who wants to complain about the welcome tour has to mention that it is a tutorial for the Switch 2, because their emotional reaction is totally incomprehensible without that context. Which in turn means that anybody who sees these complaints are now aware that the Switch 2 exists. That is exactly what marketing wants. People are talking about your product and spreading the word of its existence, and you don't even need to sponsor or pay them for it. The best part is, people still haven't realized they've been played. News media, content creators, and social media users are still talking about it for free. People think they're clever for spotting Nintendo's con, or self-righteous for calling out the company for being greedy. They don't realize that Nintendo's actual objective with Welcome Tour is to simply get them to talk, because that is helping the Switch 2 go viral to as many people as possible. People were baited and they fell for it. Hook, line, and sinker. As a person who studied marketing, I am positively cackling and applauding. Nintendo just tricked the entire internet and got away with everything they wanted, with nobody any the wiser. It's so good! I seriously hope that this is an intentional strategy by Nintendo's marketing team and they didn't just stumble into it by accident, because it's doing such a good job. Worldwide demand for the Switch 2 is insane, and the Welcome Tour is partially helping contribute to that. Let's wrap this up. Perhaps you've come to view this goofy Welcome Tour in a new light. What did you learn from this video? Maybe you learned something about tech demos, maybe you learned about customer psychology, or maybe you learned about marketing. Let me know in the comments. For now though, let me leave you with these closing words. One man's trash may be another man's treasure, but simply talking about that trash can be a treasure in and of itself. Have a good evening, everyone.